What's up?
How are you?
Doing all right, you know? I mean,
cool.
social media today just fucking shows how ugly people are. So, I mean, that kind of
Fuck it.
bums me out, which is why I hate social media. You know? I really do. I hate social media. If it wasn't for art, actually, fuck it. YouTube. Let's just stay on YouTube.
All right.
All right. Anyway, rant over. It's Friday night, everybody. I think it's Friday night. At least I've had a long 3 weeks adjusting back to a regular schedule here, and I'm going to try to get my head in the game. So, everybody, welcome to the
Art and Stuff show. I'm Sean Ahrendt, and here's Joe's bullshit.
You're never going to do that stuff again? One day, man.
I don't know. I got to feel it out.
Yeah, whatever. I'm the very attractive, very sexy, very distinguished. Always narcissistic, but never vain. A staunch defender of Rob Liefeld. And a lover of all things 90s. Joseph Michael Sonntag, or Joe M. Sonntag if you prefer, as the Pope likes to call me, JMS. Welcome to the show, and it's Friday night, and we're glad to have everybody here. We still have people filtering in, so I might just ramble for a second before we bring Jesse on here, just so we can get as many viewers as possible. As I've been saying for the last few weeks, I'd like to say again that remember on November 6th, we are going to YouTube only. We're getting off of Facebook and everything else. We're going to one channel. It's going to be called the Art and Stuff channel. Very, very creative there. And we're going to have a big launch on November 6th. So keep in mind on that. You won't be able to see us on Facebook after October. What's up, Chauncey? How's it going, brother? Good to see you here. So, yeah. So, all right. I'm going to throw it to the hype man here, Sean, who I'm sure has done his research and has got something really cool to say because...
Well, to be honest, I'm looking at everything he's got going on, and it's a scroll. It's a list.
It is a list. It's a hell of a lot of stuff.
He's a busy man. Yeah. No, look, we have Jesse Wichmann on, who has a beautiful palette, stupidly talented, and he's just not a color artist. He has other realms of art that he dives into, and we'll check that out. So, Joe, please bring him up.
All right, here we go. Jesse.
What's happening, everybody? My name is Jesse Wichmann. I'm coming to you live from the Wild Room, hanging out with Joe and Sean on the IT Show. And thanks for coming out and being with us tonight on this beautiful Friday night. I don't know where you are in the world, but I hope you're having an awesome time.
Holy shit, you just kicked that. You kicked my intro in the dick. That was awesome.
I was just going to say, man,
where have you been? Yo, I think we need him. Wow.
Well, you got to make them want it,
Sure. Yeah.
That was great. That was probably the best. That was the best intro to anybody coming on our show ever. I mean, just
like I'm sitting over here trying to type, share the thing out, and you guys all right, let's put him on. I'm like, what?
Well, I thought Sean was going to have a little bit of a longer intro, but
I had a couple edibles today, so I'm kind of posting, so you'll have to forgive me.
Every Friday, dude.
Look, it is. It's Friday.
That's true. It is. Yeah, I'll give you that. I'll give you that. You're forgiven. You're forgiven.
I got diabetes. I got nerve damage. Don't pet.
So I'm gonna eat a bunch of candy.
That was the way to go. What's going on, Rick? Hale, good to see you, brother. So anyway, we're gonna keep on rolling here. People come on in whenever you want. Ask questions. That's what we do here. We're a very interactive show, and we will sometimes take the show wherever you direct us.
Yeah, right.
After you get done with our BS, so to speak. But Jesse, you're someone I've been wanting to have on the show for a while now, and I was actually really thrilled when I reached out to you and you said that you would be on the show. Because honestly, so I've been drawing since I was 8. I've been a huge fan of comics, and I took a big break in my early 20s from drawing for almost 10 years. I was pursuing music.
Yep.
And when that was kind of over and I decided to come back, slow down my life, raise a family, I decided to get back into drawing. And when I did, you were one of the first guys I kind of stumbled across on Facebook, or I don't know if it's Facebook or Instagram or something. It might have been Instagram. It was actually a video, I think, of you doing I think it was a lady death. I don't know. It was a really hot chick that you were drawing. That's all I know. That's all I remember. And that was like a really big motivating thing to actually see you draw. It was really cool. And I think I watched the entire video. I learned a lot from it. And I think you're a fantastic artist. And up until I think only a few months ago, I just recently discovered you're a hell of a tattoo artist too. So definitely gonna get into talking about that. Cool. But Sean, I know you usually ask the first question here, so before I ramble on, I'm gonna toss it back to you because I did a lot of talking last week. I rewatched the show and I talked a lot, so maybe it's your week to talk a little bit more. You know, I mean, I know people come for this, and people come for this, but you know, maybe your voice is better. I don't know.
I don't know about that. But Jesse, what's your origin? What got you into art, comics, just drawing? Where'd you come from?
Sure. It's like a broad sweeping question, but
Well,
like art has always just sort of been like what I've wanted to do. You know, art runs in my family. My grandmother actually like tried out and was hired to draw at like a, you know, backup artist at Walt Disney animation studios, like back in the day, like, you know,
that's
back
awesome.
in the 60s, whatever.
Yeah.
And she ultimately decided not to because of, you know, like the fast, like it was ridiculously fast paced and all of that, but she moved on. My father is actually more of a technical artist. He designs, or he's retired now, but he designed kitchens and bathrooms and like, you know, architectural stuff for houses. And so creativity, art, you know, all of that has just always been in my family. It was always encouraged. And so once I got to be, you know, 9, 10, 11 years old, and it was sort of like, all right, you know, this is what he's really keying in on. Let's, you know, let him see where he kind of goes with it. And I discovered comic books when I was 10, 11, you know, like right in that sort of same age bracket.
Yeah.
I was actually in a gas station, you know, with my father or mother or someone, and Batman 465 was on the newsstand. That was like the first appearance of the Robin 3. I think it was like the Tim Drake Robin.
Tim Drake,
Batman was like a classic Norm Brayfogle cover. Batman and Robin are on the side of a building. You know, the police lights are shining on them. And like I saw that, and it was just like, you know, like it changed everything. And so I'm like, will you buy this for me? Will you buy this for me? My parents are like, no. So we went home, and like, you know, it was like $1. That's how much comics were then. And so I'm scrounging through the couch and like, you know, acquiring dimes and pennies and nickels, change. I'm 10. I don't have any money, you know, from wherever I can find it. I scrape together $1, you know, and I beg them to take me back. You know, hopefully we'll get back there, you know, and the book was still there. And I put my pile of change down on the counter, and I went home with this thing. And I was like, this is, you know, like people draw this, like this is, you know, what you can do with art. And so from that point on, like I was hooked on comic books. And then like, you know, the whole image revolution happened. And I was like, wait a minute, like, people get paid to do this? Like you know, I didn't even know where they came from, but like, you know, people make these things. Like, so comic books was what I wanted to do. So like I just pursued art, you know, like 100% after that. You know, through high school, I was a class artist. Then I went on to art college. So I have both a associate's and bachelor's degree in fine art illustration.
Nice.
And I graduated from college in 2002, basically when the entire comic book industry collapsed.
Oh.
And then, you know, and then the internet bubble collapsed at that point. And, you know, the economy was sort of resetting and doing all of that, 9/11. And so I was competing for work with seasoned veterans. And this was like, comics wasn't even something that I was sure to how to even get into at that point, because up until then, when you wanted to work for a comic book company, they all had like the in-house artists and the bullpens, and you would basically go there and be like, you know, I want to apply, I'm going to be an intern, I'm going to fetch you coffee and sharpen your pencils, and then someone's going to, you know, like, come over here, I'm going to take you under my wing, and you're going to, like, you know, be my background artist, and then you're going to work your way up, and, you know, maybe we'll give you like a 3-page backup story and like a D-list title, and if that does well and you prove yourself, you know, you're going to work your way up to, you know, actually getting work. And basically once the, you know, 2000s hit and everything collapsed and reset, excuse me, and then the internet was starting to take off, all of that went away. You just had to be like ready to go. You're good enough to be hired. Here's work, make it for us. And at that point, like I wasn't ready. Try as I might, like I was not there yet, because I had basically been thinking that, all right, I got my art foundation is nice and set. Now I need someone to train me. Except
Right.
that all just went out the window. And so I was like, all right, well, maybe comics isn't for me. So I did the only logical thing you could do, being, having an art degree and not having any art jobs, and I became a waiter. And so I went to work in restauranting, and I just went way away from comics. And sort of like between 2002 and 2008, I started off as a waiter. I worked my way all the way up to being a chef. I sold shoes, high-end fashion, mortgages, insurance.
You
Like
paid the
I
bills.
did
Yeah.
18,000 different jobs.
Yeah.
And each time, and I just wasn't happy with it. I, was searching, looking, it just wasn't me. It wasn't, fulfilling. And it always kind of came back to comics. And so I'd try some new stuff, I'd submit. And, it's like, you're good, you're not quite good enough. I'd get discouraged, I'd go away again. But all roads always kind of brought me back to making comic books. And so for 06, 07, 08, I really decided to kind of tackle it. Like, I'm going to get after this. I want to do this. I have no idea, how I'm going to do it, but I'm just going to do it. So I started doing what they tell you to do. Make 3 to 5 pages, submit it. We'll give you feedback maybe. And so kept doing 3 to 5 pages, 3 to 5 pages, 3 to 5 pages. And it just kind of ended up being the same thing. You're good. You're not so good that we're going to hire you like immediately, but if you keep bothering us, something might come around, and if you're available, we'll see about doing the thing. And so, in that 2008, 2009 timeframe, I kind of discovered that I had this giant stack of 3 to 5 pages of art that was essentially, useless, all the previous submissions that I had done. And I started thinking, I'm like, well, if I had been working on my own book, I would have had, several issues of a comic book done by this point. So I'm like, I think I'm just going to make my own comic book. Like, if they won't hire me to do it, I'm just going to do it myself. And so I have, as we all do, we have lists of stories and characters and different things that you had created in high school or whatever. And so I just kind of picked one out that, wasn't like super special or near or dear to me. I'm like, so if this is cool and people like it, great. If I totally, bungle this thing, then it's not that big of a deal. And so again, I have no idea what I'm doing beyond, that I read comic books and I know how, I knew graphic design, I knew how to draw. And so I wrote my story, I plotted it all out. I had my how to draw comics the Marvel way guide and a few other how to make comics art books. And I just started, lay down the page and I just started drawing, and page after page, all right, this one's jacked up, go back and fix it. And it took me a solid year to draw the whole thing. I hired color artists, to color the whole thing for me, to figure out lettering and all the design stuff, and to finally get it fully printed. And so that was 2008, 2009. That was right when print on demand was starting to become available, for comic producers and people making magazines and that kind of stuff. And so I knew that even if the artwork wasn't quite as solid, I wanted to have something that was professional and kind of tangible looking. And at that point, my real day job was working at a newspaper. I was actually the graphic design manager for a city newspaper.
Nice.
So I was having on the job print production training and doing all of that. So I kind of had this just working, educational, I don't even know what to call it, but I was just teaching myself. I was going to conventions the same way that everyone does, meeting up with my favorite artists, being like, look, this is what I'm doing, lay it on me, really just break it down for me. What can I do better? What am I doing okay? And I just kept seeing different people and they would make these little minor adjustments. And so I just kept going back and applying that to the books that I was making. And so I made my first book. I got it from the printer. I'm going to go to New York Comic Con. I'm going to sell like 1 million of these things. And no one showed up, like, well, like I sold, 50 or so, 100.
Yeah, well, that's
like,
not too bad.
like, and that was good, not great, but I'm like, all right, well, got to do another one now. So I went back and drew a full second issue. Again, same thing. It took me about a year because I was, paying out a decent amount of money for a solid color artist. And, and then the print on demand, everything costs 3 times as much. So when you're buying hundreds of books, it costs a lot more.
Right.
So again, it took me about a year to, put down all the money and get it all done and made. Went back and sold a few more. And at that point, all of those publishers that I've been talking to were like, hey, what are you doing? Like, why don't you come over here and sit down with us and chit chat a little bit more? And that's going to be one of the things that one of the piece of knowledge that I try to impart to, new artists or, budding artists, growing artists, is that getting work in the comic book field is very much a kind of like a battle of perseverance. It's not so much that you're not good enough. It's that publishers and editors want to see if you're actually going to stick around. And so they want to make sure that, all right, doing 3 to 5 page submission is cool, but you have to be able to draw 18 pages, 20 pages, 22 pages, whatever the book length is. And then when you're done with that, you got to do it all again. When you're done with that, you got to do it all again. And so that all by itself can actually blow a lot of artists out of the water, because now, there's deadlines you got to contend with, making sure that you're getting your stuff done. So when you hand it off to the, the color artist or the next person, so they can do their part. And so editors and publishers want to make sure that you're really in this for the long term, that this isn't just like, I watched The Walking Dead on TV, or I went and saw Black Panther at the movie theater. Drawing comics is going to be cool and hip. My friends think I'm like, a neat job. And so it's very much a don't give up. You're going to get told no a lot. Like the Jim Lees and the Rob Liefelds and those guys out there, they're 1 in a million. They walked into a convention, they laid down their art. That editor was like, yes, you right now. They're 1 in a million. The odds are you are not. I was not. That does not mean you're not good or not good enough. It just means that you have to work harder, and push through, push past your limits, and really get after it. And so, like after I put out that second issue, a few of the publishers that I was interested in working with were sort of like, let's see, we're gonna, see what's happening here. And at that point too, was sort of getting to that peak of where variant covers and, like all the sexy girl covers and all of that stuff was really, starting to explode. And so again, I was competing for work with seasoned veterans, the Jim Lees, the J. Scott Campbells, Dave Finch, Joe Benitez, so all of these guys that had, basically been trained or worked with the best of the best, and we're also now kind of looking for work like everybody else.
Right.
So it became, well, why should we hire you when we have Dave Finch or J. Scott Campbell? Like, you put their name on the book, you don't have to have anything on the book. It's going to sell.
Yeah, that's true.
Again, it was attacking this thing of I have to outdo the best of the best. And so, like, how am I going to do that? And I was, still working on my self-published book. I was kind of starting to get after, the idea of maybe doing cover work. And, it sort of ended up being the same thing as the interior stuff. Like, you're good, you're not quite good enough. Why are we going to hire you? And we have these guys. And so I'm like, all right, screw it. I'm just going to make my own variant cover. I'm going to do the art. I'm going to get it colored. I had access to a high level commercial printer. I'm going to, have them print out the thing for me. I'm just going to go buy a comic, pull the staples, stick the thing on there. And I'm going to have my own variant cover, just to say that I could do it, that I did it.
Right.
And so Zenescope was like the big company at the time. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to do some Zenescope characters. Did Alice in Wonderland and the Queen of Hearts. Like Alice is bent over. the cars, and the whole idea is that you're sort of coming up on them and seeing them, like discovering them while they're changing their clothes on the Staten Island ferry on their way to New York Comic Con, or on their way, going across the river. And I threw that up online, and Ula Moss, who was also kind of just getting started at that time, she'd been doing some color work for like Zenescope and, the other indie and mid-level publishers. She's like, I love this. I don't know who you are, where you came from. I don't know why anyone doesn't hire you. I want to color this for you. Send it to me at a free time. Like, let's do this thing. So I'm like, sweet. I'm not going to say no to free lunch. So I sent it to her, gave her some notes. Like, she just smashed it out of the park right from the get-go. And I was like, cool, let's throw it up online. And again, it just went full viral. Thousands of views and likes and 24 hours, comments, all this stuff. And then one of the publishers at Zenescope reached out to me and was like, I don't know who you are, where you came from, but this image is everywhere. People are going bananas for it. And so, like, we'd love to use it for New York Comic Con if you're interested in selling it. And I was like, yeah, sure, absolutely. Like, no, yeah, here. Yes. And so, like, we did the deal and we gave it to him. This is like in May, June, I don't know, July. It's, early summer. New York Comic Con is October. And they're like, great, like, we're going to use it for New York Comic Con. I'm like, cool, I'm going to be there. Like, maybe, we can get together. Sweet. And so as we start to approach New York Comic Con and they're putting out their plans for the convention, we have Eric Basilduo doing like 150 count this variant, Mike DeBalfo doing this variant, J. Scott Campbell and this one and that one. And, and they're all like 100, 250, 300, 200 low counts. And then they're like the Jesse Wichmann variant that no one's ever heard of, 750 copies.
Nice.
Blood drained out of my face. I'm like, oh my God, what's happening, Frank? Good to see you again. It's actually just practicing your CGC tonight. And I was like, oh my God, no one knows who I am. Like, this thing is not going to sell. This is going to be a disaster. I'm never going to work in comics again. Oh, And so I'm sweating bullets for like weeks and months. I try to do my own little like marketing campaign for the thing. And so New York Comic Con comes around. I go in on, Thursday was still actually just like a preview, press and pros only day. Like the general public couldn't get in. So I go up to the Zenescope booth. And I'm like, hi, my name is Jesse. I drew this one. It's good to meet all of you. And they're like, oh, wow, like this thing is great. You're going to be so cool. And they're like, you want to do a signing? I'm like, yeah. And they're like, all right, cool. The only signing slot we have left is like Sunday afternoon at 2:00. I'm like, okay, like whatever. I don't know. Like, this is my first rodeo, guys. Like,
sure.
And so I'm like, this is my table. I'm like down in Artist Alley. And I think that was the first year that they'd moved Artist Alley to the North Pavilion in the Javits Center, which for people that have never been, basically it's like a half a mile away from the rest of the main show floor convention. You have to like go out and down escalators and out, down and around. And it's a bit of a journey. And so because it was the first year, not a lot of people knew where it was, but whatever, it's going to be down there for the whole, whole weekend working it. And I'm like, so this is where my table is, send people down. I'll sign the book. Sunday I'll come back. We'll sign the book. They're like, sweet, like, well, high five, see you on Sunday. And so I went down, and I was crushing it for the weekend. I think I sold maybe like 3 of the covers that I had done. And I'm like, oh man, like this is it. This is the end. It swung, I missed. And so I head low, limped up there Sunday afternoon. And I'm like, hi, my name is Jesse. I'm here to do my signing. And they're like, who are you?
Oh,
no. Like I drew the Wonderland cover and they're like, you. And I'm like, oh. And they're like, yeah, that's sold out by Friday morning.
No shit.
You outsold everybody. Like,
that's awesome.
We don't have anything for you to sign. We have like your 5 comp copies. And I'm like, oh, okay. And like you can hang out and sit here like we've been advertising. People are going to come back, and there's a little bit of a line. People that had bought were waiting for me to come and be there. And so they're like, at that point, anything that you make, we will buy. Like, you know, these are our characters, kind of stay in
Nice.
like the Wonderland or the Grim Fairy Tale lane. But like anything you make, as long as it's on brand, we will take it from you. And so that just, you know, after that, it was everything I made was just an instant seller.
That's so cool.
So yeah, from there it's just been sky's the limit. As much work as I wanted to do, and you know, and then actually the really crazy part was I would do one, and then you know, like the next publisher or the next client would come along. They're like, oh, like the Alice in Wonderland cover you made, that was, oh, you know. And then I did a Grim Fairy Tales one. They're like, that one was amazing. I want that, but better. Like, well, that was like the best thing I had made up until this point. Like, and so I was competing with the best guys in the business. I now had to do what I did previously, only better. And I had to do it, you know, cheaper and faster than everybody else. And so I kind of just ended up getting battle tested in the very beginning, you know, like, because people were still hiring kind of the big top names to sell their books because they were the big names and that was what was expected of them. But they're like, look, we paid all this money to, you know, artist X, and they kind of phoned it in. This is what they delivered. This is not, you know, top quality and what we're expecting for them, especially for what we paid for their name. You know, we want you to do this only better, you know. So, you know, having your job description to be, you know, be like, all right, you know, like, yeah, you like Pantera. They came in, they totally sucked it up tonight. So you have to outdo Pantera tonight, you know, and it's like, you know, oh, is that all that I have to do?
No pressure.
Yeah.
And that, yeah, it's no pressure. And, you know, again, in the very beginning, you know, it's like you're nervous. You don't know anybody, and you certainly can't say no to people, or I can't do that. And so it very much became a, you know, yeah, I'm going to do this. I have no idea how I'm going to do it, but I'm going to deliver this for you. You know, and so people would be, you know, pitch this project, pitch the idea to me. I'm like, all right, I'm going to have, you know, a half naked demon chick laying on her back with an angel doing body shots off of her and a bartender pouring liquor on her. It's all an extreme angle and things are on fire. You know, and I'm like, yes, that's amazing. And I'm like, awesome. I have 3 days and I have no idea how I'm going to draw any of that. You know? Sorry, I kind of started rambling away there, but yeah.
No, that was awesome. That's
yeah.
awesome.
Everything just sort of led to the next thing, and it was do what you did here with my characters and better. So, yeah.
That's really, I mean, that was actually a really, really cool story. I enjoyed listening to that because, I mean,
it was inspiring.
It was very inspiring because in my mind, I'm thinking about it and putting myself in your shoes as you're telling the story. I'm just like, man, to be there at the convention and you're out selling all these big names and your cover's just flying off the table, and nobody knows who you are essentially. Like that to me is like what everybody really strives to be. Like that is so cool, dude. That was a fucking awesome origin story.
Yeah, and I mean, it was almost like a backwards thing because everyone always hears about the stories like, oh, I went to the convention and I met with, you know, Marvel Comics or DC Comics or, you know, Image or whoever. And they're like, you know, like I threw down my art and they're like, you're the one we've been waiting for. You know, we're going to put you on, you know, X-Men right away and you're going to sell 1 million copies and do all this stuff. Like those were the stories that you would always hear from people. You never really heard about the stories of the people that had to work their asses off, get in, you know, get told no, get, you know, kicked down, you know, pushed back to the end of the line, or, you know, like you're the one and then someone else ends up getting the job. Like you never really hear about those stories. And so while I am good at what I do, I always try to, you know, elaborate and, you know, make sure that people know that it was hard. It was a struggle, you know, like in the beginning, it was a bit of a financial burden, like on me, on my family, you know, my wife, she was my girlfriend then, but then my wife, you know, was very much, you're either going to read and collect comics or you can make comics, but you can't do both.
Right.
And so like you basically have to stop spending money on everything. Like I have stacks of video games from like PS2, PS3. They're still in the plastic. You know, I never opened them. I got them for gifts or whatever because I never had time to play them. You know, like I never had, you know, I wasn't able to, you know, buy the newer system or whatever to do the newer thing. Like I have, you know, comic books that I essentially bought then and never read because it was just I had to make comics. Like if we're gonna do this, if you're really going to do this, you know, you're going all the way in. It's not like, you know, as I said before, like, oh, it might be fun or it could be cool. I'm gonna be the coolest guy in the room because I make comic books. You know,
Right.
it's a job. Like you have to get after it. If you bungle your deadlines, if you miss your deadlines, like that's how you get fired or that's how you get not rehired to do more stuff. So when you commit to a project, you have to make sure that you get it done.
December Lace is talking about having the cover and it's glorious. And I was wondering, do you have that cover where we could do any kind of screen share? Because a lot of people want to see it that haven't seen it.
Oh, I don't know if I can send it to you. If you give me a second, if I can jump off camera, I can pull one out.
Yeah, go for it, man. While he's doing that, I want to say real quick, thanks. So Fizo, it's good to see you. December Lace, thanks for joining us. Frank Otto, I hope I pronounced that right. I'm horrible with last names. Don't judge me. Jacqueline,
Hi,
Rick,
Jacqueline.
thanks for joining us as always. Really appreciate all the support
Mhm.
in the chat, and feel free to ask questions. That's what the show is about. Join us, be a part of the show. And you'll sometimes you'll direct the show more than we do because basically, you know,
Yeah.
we're here to talk. We're here to talk about art, talk about comics, have a good time, have a couple laughs, drink a couple beers, have a couple shots. Strippers are going to show up at some point, maybe. That's what Sean said.
Those
Yeah,
words never
probably
came
gonna
out
be
of my
male
mouth.
strippers.
Yeah, could be.
I mean, so I've heard. Not that there's anything wrong with that if that's what you're into.
It happens.
Yeah.
It's a brave new world. You have to be, you know, understanding of people's.
Mhm.
So anyway, this is Wonderland 3 Seats, a New York Comic Con edition. This is my very first published cover. Back up so you guys can see.
Oh yeah, yep.
I remember
I've seen that quite a bit.
Yep. And so
yeah, that's woo, hot ladies.
So that was that one. And so then for my second cover, Zenescope, this is like, you know, a month or so later, Zenescope was like, you know, we're kind of coming into the holiday season. What's happening Madam December? And they're like, will you do like a holiday cover for us? And I'm like, you know, yeah, sure, absolutely. And so hold on one second. I actually have the image right next to me. Try and pull it out real quick. And so I got about halfway through drawing this, and I was like, you know what? I need to send this to them. Like, I'm still super new. Maybe this is too much. You know, it's more than anybody else has done. And so I was like halfway done with it. And I'm like, I'm going to send this in just to double check to make sure. And they responded right back, and they're like, oh, man, that's great, but we can't use it. We just did like another, you know, Alice cover where she's standing there holding up two outfits. You know, it's very similar. So, you know, that's great. Do what you want with it. Make it a print, whatever. But we still need a cover from you in a couple of days.
Oh,
it's not this one. And so I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, no problem. And so that is what led to my now.
It's even better.
God.
And so like, yeah, I'm like, yeah, I took the naughty and the nice one with the lingerie to like, you know, a 9 or 10. And so
yeah,
like,
absolutely.
I'm gonna go, you know, fully to 11 with this one. And actually the hardest part about drawing this was doing realistic soap suds.
Oh, and, yeah.
You know, like when you Google, you know, especially like in 2000, you know, 10 or 12, whenever I did that,
right.
When you Google like soap suds or bubbles, you always get like, you know, the circular cartoon bubbles floating along. Like there is no reference for, you know, soap suds or foam. Or if you typed in foam, you'd get like, you know, housing insulation, packing peanuts. And so Like I'm in the bathroom like at 2 a.m. trying to pump and like lather up like bubble bath and like take a picture of it and have it like in front of my desk as drawing reference for this thing, because like I drew animated, or I should say I drew the figures more realistic, but I try to give that little bit of a fantasy spin on it, so it's realistic in that you can identify with it, but I would push the exaggeration, especially more in the figures. Obviously, the girls are, a little thinner, a little bit bustier, what have you. But when it came to the actual backgrounds and environment, I always wanted it to be, like really realistic, push the boundaries, do something that I had never seen before and that hopefully you guys had never seen before. And a lot of that is kind of what started to set me apart from my colleagues at that time. And like everyone was kind of doing like the like the Playboy, like the soft pose, just sort of like a straight pinup, and that it was like a girl like kind of captured and frozen in time. Whereas I wanted to have like the sexy half naked ladies, but I wanted them to be a little bit more interactive with you. So like when you think like, say, Alberto Varga, like Varga girl pinups versus, say, Gil Elvgren, where there was a story element to it. It's almost like a voyeuristic view of you coming along and kind of finding this lady in this, whatever situation. And so, like even going back to the Wonderland piece, it's not just half naked girls posing for you. It's you, walking past and you're finding them. This one is in the middle of changing, and this one is sort of like, she knew you were coming, but she didn't tell her about it. And so now she's embarrassed and you're flabbergasted, and, no one really knows what to do with themselves, and then this one, this is, the fantasy of 99% of men in the entire universe. Like you come home from work or from wherever and you walk in and your lady's in a bubble bath being like, hey, Tiger, you hit the jackpot. And so I wanted to create this interactivity with the viewer and my artwork. And so within that, I started to explore how can I convey lust? How can I convey fear or happiness or excitement, or these different sort of emotional quotients? Like within that same kind of year, I kind of moved on from Zenescope to Big Dog Inc., which is another rising publisher, and they were kind of going back and forth, like with a little bit of a rivalry at that time. And I did an Ursa Minor cover for, I think it was, again, in those early days, it was this, fancy pants artist blew off his deadline. You've got 2 days. Can you do it?
Woo!
Sure, why not? Like, what's the worst that's going to happen? And so they're like, we're going to be at Philadelphia Comic-Con. We need to get this thing done so we can get it printed. Like, yeah, you live like 3 hours away. You want to come down to the convention? Sure. And so I did an Ursa Minor cover. It was the last issue of the first story arc. And they're like, this is sort of going to be like the big reveal of like the, the villainess for the first story arc. It's going to be Lady Bathory, do what you do, like, kick back some ideas. And so at that point, it was almost like I didn't really submit, like thumbnail ideas and let them choose one. I was just like, all right, here it is. This is what I'm doing. Like, yeah. And so I sent in like, pretty sophisticated layout of Lady Bathory in a Turkish bathhouse full of blood with like, Japanese rope bondage slaves hanging from the ceiling, and all of their blood was draining down into the pool. And she's, standing there like, drinking it. And in the one version, she's, wearing her dress, and the next version, she's naked. And they're like, like what? Like this. And so, we got it done. We got it colored. And again, it was just this, insane reaction where like it was the 250 count A cover, then the 100 count B cover. The B cover, the naked one, sold out in about like, 2 minutes of the show floor being open.
Go figure.
The guys that, buy up books and, sell them online to the collectors. Like they were fighting each other. People were selling them online. They're like, oh, I've got 15 copies of these when like they're only guaranteed to have like 2 or 3. And so they were overselling it in hopes that they could come in and buy up a bunch. We're trying to tell them no. So we have books that we can actually sell to the regular people. And it was just I don't know who you are, but you're fucking everything up. And, you. And so, yeah, the whole thing sold out and it was a gigantic success. And so it was all right, we need you to do that. Only better for the next one.
Only better.
Better. So, yeah, it was just, again, it was with that particular one. I don't believe I have next to me that I can show you. But if you look it up, it's Ursa Minor, number 5. It's the Lady Bathory cover.
Let me look for it.
Yeah, there's a red version and then the topless blue version. And so, yeah, and it was very much this concept of when you look at it, you're like, well, I'm probably going to die, but I'm going into that pool, and it was fear and lust and wonder and excitement.
I believe Chauncey asked, what's your typical work schedule?
I get up at about 7 a.m. I help my wife and get my son and my daughter out the door, usually by about 8:30, 9 o'clock. And then I will go to the gym, or I actually don't go to the gym, but I work out. And then after that, usually about 10 o'clock, I start working, 10 a.m., go through my email and do all of that. And, it's about 2 hours that I spend replying to people, answering questions, email questions, doing social media stuff, have lunch. I will then work from 12:30, 1 o'clock until about 4 p.m., 4:30, drawing. So it's usually I try to compress about 12 hours of drawing time into 4. And I can do that because I've been doing this for a long while and I have a lot of, tips and tricks and things that I can do to kind of speed the process along. But when you actually get into the drawing, and especially the way that I draw, it is slow and laborious and time consuming. And so I'll typically draw for 4 to 5 hours, and it's almost like laser-like focus. There's no sound or distractions or, other things going on in my studio. It's just me working away. And I actually have to set timers and alarms and stuff to go off to make sure that I stop and go pick up my kids from school or for daycare, that I don't forget about them. Yep, that is the nice version.
Yeah, this is the one I can find so far.
Yeah. Yeah, if you
awesome.
type that one in and do the nude version, you'll get that.
That's what I'm going to search for next. I will find this.
And so then usually I will then, pick up my kids. My wife will come home. We'll do dinner and family stuff until 8, 9 o'clock when the kids go to bed. I will spend an additional hour or so with my wife. And then she goes to bed for the next day. And then I will go back and draw for a few more hours. And I'll typically be in bed by 12, 1 a.m.
Now that's still hustling.
Yeah, that is.
Yes. That's my work schedule now. In the earlier days, social media wasn't quite a thing. Answering emails wasn't quite a thing. And so I would generally, and I didn't have kids at that point. So I would put in, a 7 or 8 hour normal work day. I had a job up through about 2012. And then I would basically come home and I would put in a solid 8, 9 hours of drawing. And so I was working full time, doing that, the job to make money, keep my family happy, and then doing comics, treating that as if it was a full-time job, working that. So like I said, once you accept those, that publishing assignment, those publishers are relying on you. So you have to get that done. You have to hit that, you have to hit that date as if your life depends on it.
Yeah. Well, I couldn't find it. I could find an edited version. So sorry, everybody. But look it up for yourselves if you can find it, because even the edited version looked pretty good. But all the fun parts were blurred out. So I dropped the ball being the host. Sorry. But as far as the schedule thing goes, that's one of the things I'm working on right now. I got a family, a full-time job. I draw when I get a chance to draw. I definitely don't have 9 hours during the day. But I try to get in a few hours on every day and then hit it hard on the weekend to just try to
Yep.
accomplish what I got accomplished to get, I'm trying to get a book out next year. Sean's doing the same thing. It's all about time management. Sometimes it's not the easiest thing in the world, but you gotta
Yep.
do it.
Yeah,
It's like I'm not inspired, but I gotta still fucking
Right,
do it.
yeah.
Know?
Yep.
Yep.
Absolutely. And that's one thing that I try to, let people know, is that it's okay if you don't have, 27 hours in the day to devote to this. If you only have 1 hour a day to, pursue comics or art or your passion, music, whatever it might be, then you spend that 1 hour, like if it's your last hour on earth, you hit it hard and you put in your time, and you can say, I did this today. I checked off that box. I'm good for today. Tomorrow I'm going to go out. I'm going to do all my life stuff, and I'm going to have 1 hour to work on my thing. And what ends up happening is that 1 hour is going to turn into 2 hours. And now you got 2 hours to hit it, and you're going to have twice as much time to get after your goal, to get after your dream, to make it happen. And 2 hours is going to turn into 3 hours, 4 hours. You're going to start finding that time. You're going to, stop going to the movies and you're going to stop doing all the stuff, because you're pursuing your love, and you're moving that needle. You're getting a little bit closer to where it is that you want to go. You're going to start hitting milestones. You're going to go out and talk to, one of your artistic heroes, and they're going to be like, wow, like you made so much progress since I saw you last time. Your friends and your family are going to be like, wow, like you were good, but now you're getting really, really good, really good. And so it's just, keeping after it. Don't be discouraged because you can't do it full time. You do it with the time that you have, and you make the most of it. You make the best of it. And, even if you still only have 1 hour or 2 hours, what's going to happen after 1 month, 2 months, 3 months of doing it, you're going to get faster. So now you're going to be able to do more with that 1 hour than you could, 3 months ago. And you're going to do it for another 3 months, and you get even better. And so in terms of, say, my art and my experience, I kept hammering away at it, and it would take me, say 10 to 15 hours in total to draw a cover. And as I went along and I did more and more of them, I started getting, better. I started getting faster. So I still spent the same 10 to 15 hours to draw a cover, but now I can do more. I can do, greater details. I can spend more time on, like this part or that part. And so I was able to kind of keep leveling up my covers, push the limits for myself, find, new ways to completely, jack my world up and trying to figure out how to draw stuff. But you just keep pushing forward, and you do what you can with what you have, whether it's a little or it's a lot. So if it's a lot, you have no excuses. Most people, they have a little bit. And so you just start small, keep working your way bigger. How do you eat an elephant? 1 bite at a time. Break it down to smaller pieces, 1 bite at a time.
That's fantastic advice. And, I've done similar to that. Lately, I kind of try to get in that schedule, because that was always my hard thing. And I know probably other people out there is the same thing, trying to figure out your time to actually do stuff. And before it was like, all right, I'm going to do as much as I can with my family during the week, and I'm going to hit it really hard on the weekend.
Yep.
The problem was that sometimes I get to the weekend, and I'd have such a long layoff that it took me too long to get into the rhythm of drawing and to find my groove, that the weekend's over and I'm just getting started, and then I wait another week. And so that wasn't working. So I ended up doing what you're talking about. I did an hour a day. Sometimes it was 2 hours a day when my daughter went to sleep, and I just stay up. And I ended up finding that speed, and I ended up getting done like an entire page within a week, which was the fastest I'd ever done a page. And like I was starting to hit the stride, and then my shift changed, and so that kind of threw my schedule out of whack, and I'm coming back down. But it's 100% true. Like what you just said is extremely inspiring and absolute truth. And that's the way I've been able to do it right now, and I'm gonna continue doing it that way, and hopefully I get better production. But
and I can relate exactly to that. In the very beginning, when I was self-publishing and doing my own book, when I had no idea what I was doing, it took me a solid week to 2 weeks to draw 1 page the way that like I drew. Everything is super detailed, and it's like, imagine a cover but in a panel this big. And so And I'm just meticulously going. And at that time, I wasn't under the gun. I was only had myself, to keep myself on track. And so I'm like, I don't care about speed. I care about it being done correctly,
Right.
best of my ability. And if it takes me, a week or 2 weeks to draw one page, that's just how long it's going to take me. And whittling away at it, I started with 1-2 hours, and then I moved up to like 3-4 hours. Pretty soon I was staying up to like 3-4 a.m., even though I had to get up at 8 o'clock to go to work.
Right.
But and that was just because I developed that, like that fire in my belly, and I had that passion for it. But what I found to happen was, I was taking a week or two to draw a page. Now it's taking me 1 week to draw a page. Now it's taking me 4 days to draw a page. Now it's taking me 2 days, 1.5 days, whatever.
Yeah.
And so you just end up, once you're into that groove, you find that rhythm, you have that, I call it momentum, you have that energy behind you. You're just doing, like, what you have to do. And I got pretty hard about it in that I was like, all right, from 9 p.m. until midnight, that's my drawing time. Like, period. Family is going to bed or going to do their own thing at that point. This is my drawing time. Like, I had it on my schedule, 9 a.m. My watch would beep. It's drawing time. Turn off the TV. And I went and did that. And you just sort of have to be very kind of regimented about it, because, I remember having a normal job, a full-time job, and, you get your ass kicked all day by your dickhead boss, or, by stupid public people annoying you, and you come home and you just want to like lay on the couch. You don't want to, crush a couple beers and watch reruns of, The Office or whatever.
Sure.
But those things, they don't move you towards, your goal, your dream, wherever you want to go. And it doesn't have to be comics. It could be, music like Joe does, or, anything. If you're into quilting or macrame, or you want to, be a graffiti person or a cook or, whatever, just do a little bit. It doesn't have to be a lot. And you will be fulfilled in that moment, because you're going to be like, I did it. Like I did my piece for today. I did what I could do, and you just keep moving forward.
I want to scoot back here. So a little while ago, December Lace said, Sean is a liar, but I'll entertain you if needed in a pitch. And I was wondering, what is she talking about lying about? Was that the male strippers or the regular strippers? But clarify that, because I'm really interested what Sean was lying about there. Because Sean, such a liar. Yeah. So Jesse, how did you get? Because I know you've done some stuff for Coffin Comics, and then Brian Polito's one of his things, right? Because I don't know how many. It is Brian Polito, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. How'd you get hooked up with him and doing work for him?
So I had been, like I'd done stuff for Zenescope, Big Dog Inc. I'd done a few Aspen things. And, again, this was going on about 4 or 5 years ago now. Brian Polito had he'd come back and reacquired the rights to Lady Death again. So Brian Polito was the creator, writer, yada, 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 of the entire Chaos universe, which was sort of like one of the biggest
Chaos
independent companies across the 90s. They essentially kicked off the whole Bad Girl revolution. And horror comics and all of that. And then in like the late 90s, early 2000s, when everything imploded, Chaos Comics, like, they went belly up. All the characters were sold off to different companies. Dynamite owns a whole bunch of them. And so Lady Death went through several different publishing hands. And along the way, whoever had control of the character basically violated their ownership and publishing agreements. And Brian Polito actually took them to court, sued them, and won the rights fully of Lady Death back.
Oh, I never knew that.
2010 or so, I'm not quite sure of the time, but he kind of came back with Lady Death, and like he was doing some small stuff, doing like pinup books, kind of feeling out the industry to see where things were at. And I don't know, 2013, 14, he Kickstarter was kind of really getting started, and he put Lady Death out there, and they put a whole first new volume out, Lady Death Chaos Rules. And so I'd still been doing work for some other companies, and I kind of knew Lady Death was coming back. Obviously, I knew who Lady Death was, being a teenage boy and collecting comics in the 90s.
Oh, yeah.
And so I was like, Lady Death is like a bucket list character. I'm going to sort of just watch and wait and see what happens here to see what he's doing. And after the first volume was successful on Kickstarter, he put out a kind of call to arms, artists wanted, Brian Pulido, Lady Death, show me what you've got. And so I was like, all right, cool. I'm going to submit, see what happens. And I started working on a layout, and I was getting ready to draw it. And then other publishing assignments came along. So I put it to the side, did my assignments, pulled the layout back out. I'm like, oh man, I got to fix this and take that out and put this in, change all this stuff and start to work on it. Oh, another publishing assignment. Work on that, come back to the layout. Oh man, I got to change this and take that out, put this in, do all these different things. So that happened like 5 times. And the layout for Lady Death kept getting more and more crazy and ridiculous. And I'm like, all right, I got to do this thing right now, or else it's going to be too complex for me to even draw. No one will be able to color it or anything. And so I drew it, I submitted it, and Brian contacted me back. He's like, oh yeah, like I know who you are. Like, I love this piece of artwork. It's not quite right for what we're doing right now, but we'd love to have you on for the next, the next Kickstarter, the next volume. And I'm like, oh well, like I spent a lot of time on this thing, like way too much time. Do you mind if I color it, make a print out of it, whatever? He's like, yeah, cool. And so I created a new piece of artwork, a new Lady Death piece for the volume 2 of Lady Death, this Damnation game that went onto the Kickstarter. And then the color artist, Ula Moss, kicked back the original piece that I'd used for my submission. And I was like, hey, Brian, like I did this, like check it out. And he's like, what? Like we're going to put that online. If the people respond to it, fuck it, we're going to print that one too.
Nice.
So, again, people are like, whoa, like, like, yeah, we got to have that. And so, yeah, I ended up getting that one, the submission piece, published on the retail volume 1 of Lady Death. Meanwhile, the newer piece that I had created for volume 2 was, going through for a great success on the Kickstarter. And what was funny about it was Brian basically put me almost to the front of the line. So with each of his Kickstarters, he always has all of sort of like the regular people that you see on every one. And then there's a legendary artist, someone that, like the big name, like the top of the heap, like a legendary artist. Top, like the most expensive bracket to purchase stuff in.
Right.
And then there's me, along with everybody else. And so right out of the gate, I started out almost in the number 2, basically in the number 2 position. And I've just sort of held on to that the entire way through. And within that, I decided that, again, everyone was sort of doing, and Lady Death was coming back, and, more and more artists were, getting work and getting pieces published. And they were kind of sticking with the classic, black bikini, Lady Death with a sword, or, her sickle or whatever. And so that's what everyone else was doing in full Jesse Wichmann fashion. I decided to do the opposite of that and create, doing what I'd done, where I try to make storytelling elements, captured in that singular image. But on top of that, I also wanted to portray her in different ways, different costumes, sort of push the boundaries as far as, different ways that we could see Lady Death as a character, and really just try and excite people's imaginations and how they think about the character. And so I started doing this series of art pieces where I essentially explored the idea of death and demons and death goddesses in different cultures and religions and throughout history. And so I ended up creating a Viking style piece. I did an Egyptian death queen, a Japanese Hanya slayer. Yep, that is the death pharaoh.
Yeah, I love this one, man.
On
So sick.
And like just sort of all of these like way left field ideas, and a lot of them were very much, Brian is like, can you do this piece, by such and such a time? I'm like, absolutely. Here's Egyptian lady death or Japanese lady death, sort of like, ooh, slow your roll a little bit, but these are so awesome. We're gonna run with them. And
Right.
so, yeah, I got to have a lot of fun with it. And with the Hanya Slayer piece, I think it was actually the volume before the Death Pharaoh. That one he ended up taking and fully turning into a character in the Coffin Comics universe. So I went from not just creating, cover art that he was using for, that's the Morrigan. Yep, that was also in the series. To creating versions of Lady Death that are now actually affecting the whole Coffin and Lady Death universe. So that was, something that ended up being really kind of insane and special to me. That
you're in the lore. That's fucking awesome.
That's
like,
crazy
right,
cool.
Like because I was 12, or 13 when Lady Death came out. And, up to that point, I had been collecting X-Men and Batman, and then like Image happened, and I was Wildcats and Youngblood and Spawn. The concept that you could print like half-naked ladies with blood and skulls and stuff, like everything in the 90s was like just a full new, revolutionary idea. And so, yeah, I was, 13 when Lady Death came out. That's the Black Widow. That was actually from volume 3. And you derailed my train of thought with my own artwork.
Sorry, man.
That's okay.
Some of this beautiful work.
But yeah, like I went from like essentially idolizing, like these characters and these creators, because they're like my heroes, to having dinner with them and talking about, like the future of their company with them. Like, it's like I'm fanboying out over here while I'm trying to like, play it cool, be like, yeah, I think I could help you with that. Like meanwhile it's like, buckets of sweater coming out of my armpits. And so, yeah, just being able to be a part of it. It's like I'm so, I impress myself. I always say that I'm my own biggest fan when it comes to my artwork, and that I will be the first person to tell you that I'm fucking awesome. But on the other side of it, I'm also, just super grateful and super, just happy that the fans react the way that they do, that the collectors react the way that they do. And because ultimately at the end of the day, that's the driving force for whether or not you get more work. You get a couple of chances if you sort of, swing for the fences and miss. But at the end of the day, comic books and all of this is a business. So if you're doing these crazy ass ideas and they're not connecting with people or selling, that's basically, you're going to get a couple chances to, dial it back in, or, you're out. And so, I'm just super happy and grateful that, just over the years that the readers and the collectors and the fans have always, stepped up and gone to bat and be like, that, I got to have that. Like, I don't even know what that is or who you are, but I got to have it. And that's one of the things that I tell people that's ridiculous, is that I've basically spent a decade selling, off-brand fantasy art to people that have no idea what it is that they're buying or who they're actually buying it from. But they're walking through a crowd or they see it online, and I got to have that. Like, I was over there, I saw the colors, I saw it flashing on the screen, and I came over here and I have to have that. And so, yeah, that to me is super, super awesome, which I thank everyone for.
And that's what's awesome about art, is because good art is going to sell no matter what, and it doesn't matter who's drawing it, what name's attached to it. If you have the art that connects with the fans and the collectors, they're going to pick it up. I mean, when I was got really behind artists when I was younger in the 90s, it was just like, if you're giving me something I like, I'll be a fan of yours. You know,
Yep.
and that's the coolest thing. It's a good connection between the artist and the fan, because you know that person will most likely be a fan for life, or as long as they're collecting, because you just have something that strikes that perfect note with whatever's pleasing to the eye. I mean, sexy chicks, obviously, but just in general, you know, style wise, whether it's detail or just the way you draw action or figures or whatever, you know, it's one of the coolest things I think is about art. And you know, the same thing with music, but you know, just art in general, you know.
Absolutely.
Chauncey had a question. He said, what's Jess's dream project?
That's a big question. And it's always evolving. So, you know, if you'd asked me that 5 years ago, I would have said drawing Lady Death, you know, or drawing this or drawing that. And so right now in this moment, my dream is actually to dial back a little bit on the amount of cover work that I've been doing, which I actually am doing, and going back to self-publishing. So that series that I started 10 years ago, I'm actually going back to that now. I'm completely redrawing the first 2 issues to essentially update the artwork to how I draw now, and I'm going to keep on publishing it. So for all those people that were, you know, like the 350 or 400 people that bought my comic in those early days that have been very patiently waiting for me to come back and finish the story, like that's basically what I'm going to now. And so the idea is to start doing what I've been doing for other people, but for myself. So as you can see here behind me, I started actually drawing covers, variant covers for myself, and started releasing my own Jesse Wichmann exclusives. So we'll have a Fathom cover out next year once Aspen gets their stuff back on track, the whole COVID life. And then this one over here is Princesses versus Zombies. That's a Big Dog Ink series, and we should have those. Yep, Tom Hutchinson is online. And we'll have that next month. And so I'm going to be releasing my own covers sort of sporadically as I find, you know, cool series that I dig and think other people will like. And then I'm totally attacking my own stuff. And so that's right now. Projection for the next couple of years is that I plan to just keep doing that exact business model. Put out a couple of my own, you know, variant covers per year, you know, or as I find more and more of them, and hopefully you guys like and buy them, I'll be able to do more of them for the, you know, like the variant and the special edition collectors. And all of that will basically fund and fuel me, you know, just doing my own series. And so the idea is just self-publish the hell out of my own stories, because as good as an artist as you all think that I am, I'm actually an even better writer. So, you know,
that's awesome.
You know, as with music or art or anything else, you can tell people you're good at something, but until they actually experience it, they don't really know. Probably the person here that knows is December, because she's read a few of the early things. But yes, I'll be doing Lady Death December. You know, and I'll be do some Big Dog Ink stuff here and there. Some of the, you know, what I consider like my publishing family, the companies and the people that I worked with early on that were, you know, took a chance on me, you know, were good to me. You know, I won't be on everything that they create, but, you know, when they call, I'll answer the phone and we'll see what happens.
What's some advice you would give to first-time publishers or somebody like that you wouldn't expect, where it's like, I wish I knew about that? But
right. So with publishing and the creation of anything in general, what I found is that a lot of people have really big ambitions and they end up sort of putting the cart before their horse. And so everyone hopes, in the same vein of everyone hopes they're going to go to a convention and be like that artist that a publisher finds and picks up. You're going to be that one in a million. When it comes to your idea, you know, your ideas for creating a comic or story, you know, putting your project out there, you know, your fashion, your music, whatever, everyone generally thinks that they've, reinvented the wheel or they've created the next best thing since sliced bread. And so, and I did this too back in the early days when I was creating my book. I'm like, this thing is great. Everyone's going to love it. The movie studios are going to call me. It's going to be a movie and I'm going to have statues and t-shirts and whatever else. And you make this thing and you set it out on the table, you're ready to go, and nobody shows up. Because ultimately, no one knows who you are. No one knows about you. You're just one of, a billion people trying to make stuff out there. Your noise, your chatter to everyone out there that's, for the consumers, the people that are looking to buy stuff. They don't know. They see shiny things all over the place and, news ads and banners and commercials. What's happening, Russell? Great to see you tonight. Or hear from you tonight because I can't see you. And so the best thing that you can do for yourself is not to keep your project secret. Everyone ends up acting like a secret agent when it comes to their stuff. Like, I can't tell anybody about it until I'm all done, until I have, everything is all set and ready to go. And when you're at that point, it's almost like too late because now you have the project, it's done, you have to put it out there. And if you, give people, and this is what we're seeing with the whole like indie comic scene and everyone on Kickstarter and social media and all of that, people are putting little bits and little pieces out there all along, getting people excited, building a fan base, building people talking about your project, because at the end of the day, there's not going to be, a million people lined up to buy your thing. There's going to be 10 people or 100 people, or hopefully 1,000 people, or just, like the amount of people that you've talked to and that you've gotten excited about what you're doing. And so that is a combination of, let people know what you're doing, put it out there. Obviously, you don't have to give it all to them, but, just enough to get them interested. And so that they hopefully want to check out what you're doing, maybe hopefully give you their hard-earned money, because you have to earn those, those bucks, those dollars, $10, $20. And then don't get discouraged. That's the other bit. When only 10 people show up or, not a lot of people show up, it's not because what you're doing isn't good. It's just because not enough people know about it yet. So you knuckle down and keep doing, because you have 10 people or 100 people or whatever that bought from you. So you need to, make sure that you're earning the money that they've spent on you. Yes, burlesque marketing, Tom. Got to show a little leg. So you got to make sure that you continue to earn their trust and the money that they've invested in you, as well as, working on your project and then, finding new people that don't know about you. And so within all of that, the big key, the main key, write this down, don't bankrupt yourself. Everyone comes into this as like, oh, I gotta print, a million copies of this book. I gotta have t-shirts and posters and stickers and hats, and like I gotta have all of this stuff. I'm gonna spend, I'm gonna mortgage my house. I'm gonna quit my job. I'm gonna do all this stuff. And when only 10 people show up, that's like and so make sure that you are able to actually manage it, that it's, you're not maxing out your credit cards, that there actually is interest in what you're doing, and that goes back to what I was saying earlier about, this thing is your baby because you're spending so much time on it and you're investing, your blood and your sweat and your tears and your soul, you're emotionally connected to it. You start to view it as like, your child, your baby. It's this thing that you created, and no one cares about it quite the way you do. And that's just it, is that no one actually cares about it. And so, it just all these little pieces of things, and that's stuff that you learn along the way. And, so work on it. Don't, blow your 401k. Don't spend your kids' college money. Make sure that you have manageable expectations. Make sure that you're putting it out there, and that, you're getting people involved in the process and helping you along. And it's a marathon, not a sprint. So all of this, all the things that I've been just blasting at you guys information wise, it's a marathon, not a sprint. You're going to do all this little stuff and you're going to get this much, and then you're going to do it all again and you're going to get this much, and you're going to do it all again. Now you've got this much, and so on and so forth. And you just keep building. And, the same way with, drawing for 1 hour a day, or, playing your music for 2 hours a day, you're building momentum and you're building excitement. And the same way that, as we said earlier, with publishers wanting to make sure that you're not just a flash in the pan, fans, readers, all of those people, they want to make sure that you're not just a flash in the pan too. So, oh man, issue 2, issue 3, issue 4 of your book is out. All my friends are talking about it. I'm seeing it shared everywhere. I got to go and check this thing out. Like, I keep seeing this thing, but I, wasn't sure about it, but now I'm in. And so it is very much just a, how much fortitude do you have to keep pushing and keep getting there? And so one of the business things that I try to impress upon people, and they usually roll their eyes, is that do this with the expectation that no one is going to show up. You're not going to make any money. No one's going to care about it. Like, just on and on. Think about all the negative things you could come up with, and you still need to or want to make this book. Then you will succeed. Because if you just come into it being like, I'm going to sell 1 million copies and Netflix is going to buy it and I'm going to have all this money, success and all of that, like, you're not gonna make it. You're gonna fail. And it's not because your project isn't good. It's because you don't actually want it bad enough. You just, you see a way to make a quick buck. Comics are popular right now. You can make a lot of money with it if it, gets picked up and is The Walking Dead and whatever.
Right.
But if it's a burning desire and you approach it as if, you are going to fail and you're doing it anyway for the love of doing it, that's when people start to show up. And you start getting very appreciative when they give you, $5 or $10 or $20, whatever it is that you're selling. And suddenly that sort of thing just sort of fuels your momentum. Money and fame and all of that is just a byproduct of you kicking ass and loving what you do.
Yeah, I mean, I think
you got an ugly kid. Like, I'm sorry, but like, when is it time to realize you got an ugly kid? Before that happens.
What up,
like,
Comic Book Bob? Good to see you, brother.
Should I invest more in this and chug along, or let me move on to something else and not waste more time?
That is purely a personal, and or like a business decision that you need to make. If you are pumping just tons of capital into the production and people aren't showing up, you try different social media things, people aren't showing up, so you spend more money on advertising and people aren't showing up. Like, that just has to become something that you have to decide on your own. Like, that's not something that you can specifically be told, because it could just very much be you're not, you've got a good thing, but you're not reaching the right audience, or it could be that your thing isn't actually very good. And so, and it is one of those very, very, because no one wants to believe that. Everyone wants to believe that they created the new X-Men or Spider-Man or whatever. Right. And so taking that hard look and being like, you know what, this isn't the right time for this. We're just gonna, you don't even have to like throw it away or totally, crush it. You can just be like, it's not the right time for this. Pack it up. We're going to put that up on the shelf for right now. You've got your notebook full of other ideas. We're going to try and tackle one of these, and one of those might hit, and, and that's going to lead you to, more successes down the line, maybe big, maybe small. We don't know. But down the road, you might suddenly decide or see that, what? People are totally in the market now for stories about purple people eaters that I had made that, people didn't want 10 years ago, but, now we're in the purple people eater phase and that's what people want. And I've got this thing.
Great movie.
Yeah, there you go. See? Great song. And so, like, you don't know. And that's a nonsensical thing that I've discovered, is that if I think it's cool usually most people don't. You know, I'm like, make this thing and it's gonna blow up at conventions or whatever, and nobody cares about that. They like this thing that I just sort of randomly did one time and threw it in the back of the book, and they're like, oh my god, you drew Rick and Morty once? Like, I need that. Like, so it's just there's no rhyme or reason to any of it, and as much like research and studying as you think that you can do. Like sometimes things randomly that you have no idea are going to be super popular and stupidly successful, and there's you have no idea why. And then the other stuff where I've put 10 billion% of my energy and time and money into this thing, and this is going to be the one. Disney's going to call me tomorrow.
Right.
Who cares? And so yeah.
I wanted to back up real quick. Chauncey, I saw a question. There it is. It said, how much of the creative chore are you planning to tack on your own creator book?
Everything except for the coloring. And so I'm going to write it. I'm going to lay it out, draw it. I do all the graphic design and lettering work. And initially, my plan is to actually release it online on my website, jessewichmann.com. You will be able to read it for free. So it will be a true try before you buy experience. And I'm going to be releasing it in sort of like small 3 to 5 to 6 page chapters. And, so it's almost going to be like a Sunday Comics web serial. Yep, there's the website. You can see that the button up there, Thief of Hearts, that is actually the name of the series. I don't believe the button works currently. But you'll be able to click on that and you'll go straight to where, the whole thing is. And it's just going to be, multi-page chapters you're going to read through. And then once I have a whole bunch of it done, that's where it'll then go through the color phase and get colored. And we're going to go to Kickstarter with it. And hopefully you guys, like it, love it, and want to give me all of your money.
That was going to be my next question of what platform you were thinking about using. But yeah, I mean, you definitely got a supporter in me when you get ready, man. I'll definitely be backing that project for sure.
Awesome. I appreciate it. Yeah, the series is it's a fun, kind of lighthearted, classic adventure, pulp romance story, dashing hero, damsel in distress. There's a whole bunch of kind of twists and turns and, different story elements. It's fun with a kind of ridiculous band of friends and enemies that have to help the hero go on like a giant hero quest to save the day. And so it's very much a story that you've probably read 1,000 times, but my take on the whole thing is what's going to set it apart for you. It's very cinematic and action and humor oriented. There you go, December Lace. She read the the original older version that I had created.
Oh, nice.
And so the story is very much going to remain the same. I'm going to adjust the the dialogue a little bit, but it's just going to be like a full overhaul on the artwork.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I'm looking forward to that for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I do this every stream. Like I have a thought and I'm holding. I'm like, I got this question. I'm holding it and then gone. So, Sean, I'm gonna throw it to you.
How'd you get into tattooing?
Oh, there you go.
I got into tattooing sort of by accident. And so at that time, it was right around 2013 or so, I had found some success with Zenescope, and then I'd moved on to Big Dog Inc. And at Big Dog, we'd been working on some projects, and there was like a decent kind of gap between the projects that they just finished and what was coming next. And they're like, we'd love to have you, continue working with us, but obviously it's going to be a little bit, so if you need to go away or whatever, like it's understandable. And so I was like, well, I'd really like to keep on working with you. Tom Hutchinson is on the line here, or he was. He's the publisher, owner, writer, creator of Big Dog. And so I was looking for something to do for kind of like short term or even longer term that was art oriented, but didn't involve like breaking rocks or digging ditches or basically going back to having a non-cool comic book art job. And it was just right at that time. There's a local kind of higher tier tattoo studio. You know, they had put an ad out. Artists wanted, no tattoo experience preferred. We will train you. You know, like you bring your art skills, we'll teach you the tattoo skills, and you know, we'll see what happens. And so I was like, oh, well, that sounds like me. And I had sort of always circled tattoo when I was in college. I had some friends that were like became tattoo artists, were apprenticing. You know, I had gone on, I got tattoos. And so it was always one of those things where people are like, oh, like you should design tattoos. You know, will you make me tattoos? When comics kind of start to take off, your comics should make awesome tattoos. And so, you know, and I'd go and I'd be like, hey, you know, Mr. Tattoo Guy, Scary Tattoo Man, you know, will you buy my artwork? You know, I'd love to make some artwork and sell it to you, and you can make tattoos with it. And none of that really worked out. Tattoo is almost like a, you know, tight-knit kind of closed business. You know, like you can't get in unless you're in, or you know someone that'll get you in, and you can't be in unless you know, knew someone. And so it was always sort of like a swing and a miss when it came to tattoo. So, you know, artists wanted, no tattoo experience preferred. I sent them my artwork, and they were like, oh yeah, like you're exactly who we're looking for. You're a little weird and artsy, not really like the tattoo guy. Like I don't have to going up my neck, but you know, like come and hang out with us, you know, spend like a week or two with us. And if it's something where you think, you know, it's cool and you might want to like really get after it, then we'll do the thing and we'll train you up. And so I hung out for a bit, and I was like, all right, yeah, I think I want to do this, you know, because they're making money hand over fist. They're doing like crazy ass tattoos, and everything was awesome. And I was like, you know, fuck yeah, let's do this. And so I became a tattoo apprentice in the middle of 2013. And it just sort of went from there. I spent about 6 months doing an apprenticeship. You know, and it was exactly kind of what they were looking for. I had the artistic experience, and so they were just literally teaching me to tattoo and everything, you know, that goes into tattoo that the average people don't necessarily know about, kind of like the science behind it and the physiology and the biology, you know, about the human body and how it all works. And, you know, started in like July of 2013. December rolled around. I was like, you know, I'm itching. I need to get out there. I need to start doing this. And they're like, awesome. So they threw me into the deep end and sort of wound me up and let me go. And I sucked. Like it was, you know, and it was almost like my, you know, my artistic ability was way up here. And as soon as, you know, they put a tattoo machine in my hand, it just dropped all the way back. You know, it was like almost learning art all over again, because while it was theoretically very similar, like I'm drawing a line and then filling it in, you know, with color, you know, or shade, the actual application of getting a, you know, 5-pound vibrating machine that's shooting a needle with ink that's sort of flying out into a person that's a 3-dimensional surface, and they want a 3-dimensional piece of artwork, and they're moving and it's moving and I'm moving. Like it's literally the worst of all possible, you know, situations combined together. And, you know, they're hoping that you don't ruin their body permanently, and they're giving you money for it, and, so, and they're paying you to, and so, you know, it's like a giant responsibility. You're, oh my god, this is for real now. And yeah, like you just, again, the same thing with comics, you just push through. You do one and it's not very good, and you just got to make sure that the next one is a little bit better and a little bit better and a little bit better, you know. And it's very much just doing stuff where you don't bite off more than you can chew, you know. And you learn that the hard way early on, when it comes to tattoo. And they tried to fire me many times, you know. They're like, look, this just isn't working out for you. Like, you know, I don't know if, you know, tattoo is the right thing. You might want to consider something else. And I'm like, no, like I'm not. I'm doing this. I'm going all the way. I don't care if anyone helps me or not. Like I am going to make this work because I'm stubborn and, you know, whatever else. And so I just pushed through, and it's like a weird thing. After like 6 months of, moderate failure, it was like I opened up the right door and walked through, and suddenly all of it just clicked, and I was able to do stuff better than I was doing before. And you can actually, I don't show people these photos, but you can go back and look at the really old photos, and it's sort of like not so good, and then all of a sudden the quality jumps up and it's that good for a while, then all of a sudden it jumps up again.
Right.
You sort of kind of go through these, trial and error and, fail your way forward until you hit these milestones. And yeah, again, you just keep after it and don't give up. And so.
No, and I love your tattoo work too. I mean, that one I just pulled up was badass. And when
beautiful lines, yeah.
Yeah, I would say when I discovered that you were a tattoo artist, when I started seeing some more of your work on Instagram and Facebook, it kind of threw me off at first. I was like, I think the first one I saw, I thought maybe it was a tattoo that you had gotten until I read the description. I was like, oh, yeah. I was like, holy shit.
I get that a lot, actually. Everyone's like, man, you get tattooed like all the time. That's all you do is post tattoos.
Yeah.
No, I'm actually doing those tattoos. Like, I'm putting them on a person. Like, that's like a chick's arm. You can see a boob in the picture.
Yeah. I was going to pull up a couple other pictures, but I was like, if anybody wants to check it out, go to Jesse's page on Instagram or Facebook and check out a bunch of the pictures because they're pretty cool. And I don't want to bring too many of them up because they're other people, and I guess it's public because it's on his page, but yeah, I mean, one day, if I ever get so lucky, if I ever get another tattoo, I might have to contact you one day and work something out because I love your style. I think that does nothing but help aid the artistic style that you put together with it. And what's funny is you talk about people wanting, like, always coming up to you and be like, hey, design me a tattoo. I'm sure Sean has the same thing where people come up, I've had people come up to me and say the same thing all the time. I'm like, you know what? I would love to. It's like, if I have one style, I could design you what you want, but it's going to be like in my artistic style. I can't do.
I got a shaky hand. I don't want to give somebody like that's not cool.
Well, so. I wouldn't be able to tattoo anything, but to design a tattoo. And it's like, well, this is my style. I could give you a comic book style of what you want, but that's as far as I can go. And they'll be like, oh, I'll just do it. So like there've been a couple times I've done it and I'll give it to them. And in my mind, I'm like, there's no way you're going to be able to get this tattooed because I got like all this tiny little detail in there. It's not going to look the same. But seeing some of your work, it's like you can actually bring out a lot of that small detail. Your shading is really good. So it's very impressive, man. Very impressive.
Thank you. Yeah. And one of the things that I tell people now that I've been a tattoo artist for a while is that, a lot of people come in and be like, oh man, my neighbor's daughter is an artist and she's like 12 and she drew me a flower. And I'm like, well, here's the deal with that. Yes, this is your idea and it's, the artwork that you've brought, but at the end and it's your tattoo, it's your forever. But when you walk out of here, you're walking out of here with my tattoo.
Right.
So it's not so much whether or not, it's good enough or can be done. It's, do I want to put my name on this? And so when it comes to people designing stuff like for you,
right,
it then is my choice whether or not I actually want to tattoo that, because you can walk out the door and be like, oh man, this thing is the greatest thing in the world. Like Jesse Wichmann did this. Take a look at that. And people are like, ooh, like, oh, I'm not going there. That Jesse Wichmann guy is no bueno.
Right.
And so what I tell people, and people that ask me to design stuff for them, is that, look, I'm not going to design anything for you, then I'm not also going to tattoo for you, because I could design this and you could take it to your guy, or, you could go find someone in your area and they could totally make it awesome, or more than likely they're going to destroy it because it's not their art style. It's so specific, specialized, to what I do, that they're not going to be able to, capture it or, do it any justice. And then on top of all of that, like when we're designing tattoos and making stuff, we're doing it, we're creating like little mental notes while we're working. Like, all right, I gotta like, do this section with this size needle, or I gotta, use this shade of gray to color it in, or I need to do this over here. And so we have all these sort of little mental notes to actually how to, apply this tattoo to your body in the most, beneficial and efficient way possible. That if you just hand a drawing to someone, just Joe other guy to tattoo this on you, they're not going to have any of that. And they're just going to be like, all right, I'm going to strap in my, trusty liner needle and give it a good go.
Right.
Then you, the owner of the tattoo, is going to, possibly be a little disappointed because you're expecting to end up with, my artwork done by this guy, but it's really just going to look like that guy tattooed it. Ultimately, at the end of the day,
that's actually a really good point. I never thought about that before. That would be my good excuse to tell people why I don't like designing tattoos.
Yeah,
I try
that is the number one thing. Like instead of telling them they have a stupid idea, I'd be like, look, I'm not going to design it because I'm not going to tattoo it.
Right.
And that just then fuels them. Like, all right, well, you're the guy, then I have to, figure out a way to come and see you, or, come and figure out how to make this possible, whether it's me traveling to a convention in their area, or ultimately, and we'll go back to whoever asked my goals question, I'm actually in the process of buying a building. I'm in the early stages of buying a building that I'm going to renovate it. It's going to be called the Wild Room. That's the name of my company, Wild Room Tattoo, Wild Room Comics. And it's just going to house tattoo, comics, my shipping and distribution stuff, all the publishing and printing stuff. And, it's just going to be my kick-ass dojo. And the really big goal is it's a 2-story building. And on the second story, I'm actually going to build sort of like cruise ship style cabin hotel rooms. So folks like Joe, who wants to get a tattoo, he can come and travel to where I am. He can camp out in his room.
I like it.
We can come, he can come out for a week. We can get the artwork straightened out. We can fucking destroy your body for a couple of days, and then you can check out where you live, and you don't have to worry about staying, anywhere, figuring out lodging. Is you're just going to be right there.
It's a great idea.
We can crush it and, get you happy and get you set and send you on your way. And so that is sort of like one of my bigger, broader goals. I was hoping to have it all done by like this time now of this year, but obviously, pandemic and COVID life is throwing a giant wrench into all of that. But I just got the word from the county that they're going to be sending me my information that I need to acquire the building in a couple of weeks. I'm working with some business people to make a business plan, because believe it or not, when you approach a bank about borrowing money, it doesn't matter that you've been successful for a decade. They just hear comic books and tattoo and then sort of laugh at you.
Yeah. That's too bad.
That's great. Congratulations.
Yeah, sounds like an awesome idea. Hey, Jay Safizo, thanks for joining us. We are hitting the 1.5 hour mark. I think we're going to wrap this up here pretty soon. I think a lot of people are dipping out. It's Friday night. It's either you're going to party or you're going to bed because you're really tired from working. So one or the other is going to happen.
No one wants to hang out with the nerds on YouTube anymore.
I know. I mean, I'm fine to keep going. Usually we try to keep it to about 1 hour, 1.5 hours, maybe 2 hours, because we never really tell the guests how long we're going to go. Sometimes they ask and we're like, we're usually an hour show, but the conversation, we just, the conversation's good.
It's being natural. Just let it go. And if they're a total dud, you can be like, oh, look at the time. I watch, Golden Girls. Sorry. And like what I like
me with the good time.
Yeah, like I'm totally fine sticking with your hour and a half. And that just it's almost like a to be continued. Hopefully everyone enjoyed listening to my crazy stories. You guys enjoyed having me on, and so
it was
a couple of months. Hopefully, I can come back, hang out with you guys, and we can rap about
absolutely
all that and more.
We loved it. I
was thinking like I would love to get rid of Joe and have you on the regular because you're phenomenal.
I oversold the intro. I oversold the intro.
Yeah.
So Joe's training his replacement on the job.
I see how it is, Sean. I see how it is.
Welcome to capitalism.
Yeah, we do need to do that draw and chill sometime. Comic Book Bob. I think all of us should get on there. That's a fun thing to do. Fuck, there goes my idea again. I cannot hold on to thoughts anymore. I'm not getting that old. I mean, it's just
your faculties, they're the first thing to go after boners.
Oh,
that's why I take Viagra.
That's very depressing.
There you go. That's a closing thought for tonight.
That's so depressing. Oh, that's what I was going to say. Yeah, we'd love to have you back. When do you think you're going to be doing? You might have said this, and I try to keep track of the chat and look things up while we're doing the show. So if I miss this, I apologize. But when do you think you are trying to aim to do the crowdfunding project? Is that something next year or anytime soon?
I'm drawing it right now. I actually wanted to get like a handful of chapters and sections finished before I start running them out, and I'm gonna start putting them online almost immediately. So probably within the next month or two, probably when I get a handful more pages done, I'm gonna start throwing them out there like every 2 weeks or so. So it'll be like just whatever the scene amount of pages the scene is. It might be 2 pages, it might be 6, and so those are going to be like chapters, chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, going to go out every week. The goal is to get them out every week, but I'm going to start with 2 weeks to begin with, give myself a little bit of leeway and wiggle room. And once I have like 1 to maybe 2 issues of that online, people are hopefully digging it and reading it and responding to it. At that point, I will then kind of go to the crowdfunding and the Kickstarter thing. And so, just regardless of, if nobody likes it, it'll still be out there, and then as we talked about earlier, getting rid of that ugly baby. But, I'm confident in myself that people are going to, dig it. So most likely, ideally summertime of next year I jump to the Kickstarter phase. So yeah, blast it through Kickstarter, create images. I have a whole slew of my colleagues that are going to contribute like cover art, pinup art for me. I can name drop like Monty Moore, Marat Michaels,
Mighty Marat, nice.
Yeah,
all right.
Jamie Tyndall, Sora Sung. Gonna get hopefully Mike DeBalfo involved in there. And so
nice.
Rome. So yeah, just all of my friends and colleagues that I've been working with and for, like they're gonna do some stuff for me. And so you all guys are also gonna see some contributions there. So I'll have some pretty sweet rewards when we get to the crowdfunding, the Kickstarter phase. And yeah.
Marat's doing my variant.
Awesome.
So that guy's stupidly talented. I love him.
Awesome artist. Yeah, that'd be really cool. Well, I mean that's a little ways away, so we'll definitely have to have you in before that. Yeah, for sure. Because this has been really fun.
Really inspiring. Like
it really is.
It's that after school special that just fucking makes me just light my fire.
Right, and that's one of the things. One of the other things is that I've always tried to, do what I do and do it to the best of my ability, but I always want to make sure that, like I am available to help and motivate people, along the way. I remember way back in the early days, in the very, very beginning, I was at this little teeny convention out in the middle. I'm from New York, upstate New York. And so I was out in New York. Yeah, I could hear your accent.
I don't have an accent.
Sean's
you got an accent, brother. Yeah, you do.
The downstatey accent. But I was out in out in the middle of the state, this little teeny convention. We were in like a gymnasium, and I was only there because the convention had like blown their whole budget, all their money on bringing out Top Cow to be their guest. And so they had Mark Silvestri and Matt Hawkins and Ron Mars and a bunch of their artists. And so I'd never met Mark Silvestri before, and he was like one of my artistic idols and heroes. And so like I just put out like the first issue of The Thief of Hearts, and I hadn't really done anything else at that point. And so I was like, I'm going to go to this show. I'm going to get a table. So I'm just in the show. I'm at the show and I'm going to stand in line. I'm going to meet Mark Silvestri. I don't even care. My wife went with me. She was managing the table. And so, everyone was there to see Mark Silvestri and Top Cow. So like, the line was like wrapped all the way around the building. And so I waited in line for a solid like 4.5 hours. And I was getting closer and closer to the table. And my wife had been selling, thief books. And so people were coming up to me in line. She's like, yep, that's him over there. People are coming up to me in line to sign their books.
Oh, shit.
So I'm standing in line, every few minutes someone will come up and I'll sign books or prints or whatever for them. They'll leave. And everyone around me is like, who are you? And I'm
Right.
like, well, I'm that guy. I'm Jesse. And they're like, oh, wow. And I remember, so my table's on one side of the room. The Mark Silvestri line is through the middle of the room. And then there's tables on the other side. This guy, and I didn't know who he was at first, he came up to me and he's like, will you sign my book? And I was like, sure, absolutely. And he's like, I just want to tell you, like, I'm set up over there at that table. And basically outside of Top Cow, everyone was it was all just indie creators, local indie creators. There was like the craft people, just whoever they could fill the room up with.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, everybody in this room is an indie creator, and you are too. But he's like, the difference between you and everybody else is that your comic book looks like a comic book. He's like, I could sort of tell that, you're not quite like a mainstream artist with it, and that kind of stuff. But he's like, this, it's like good paper, it's fully colored, like the design is legit. He's like, this right here, I pick it up, it's an imaginary book in my hand. This right here inspires me. This is like
awesome.
blueprint for taking my book. He's like, I'm at Staples, like running through the photocopier, printing them out, stapling them together and cutting them all myself. He's like, I don't even know how you did this. He's like, did you print like, 10,000 of them from a full printer? And, I gave him the rundown of what I had done. He's like, this inspires me. And that story, sticks with me, throughout all of, everything that I've done, because being able to, do something for yourself is awesome, but being able to do something and that motivates somebody else to do something is, that's one of the greatest gifts that I can ever receive, hearing someone and go like, I discovered your artwork and that, motivated me to go back and pick up my pencil and start drawing or painting again, and like, here's what I did, like, what do you think? I'm now the guy on the other side of the table helping the me's of the world, the people that I used to be, because it used to be me over there approaching my heroes and going like, this is me, this is what I do, how do you think I could change or adjust or get better, and they would give me their notes and I'd go away and come back the next year. When you go from being the person asking for help to the person that people are now seeking out help from, like that blows my mind. I've been doing this for about a decade now. When people come up to me at a table at a convention or they send me a message online, they're like, oh, like, it's you, I found you, I didn't know you were going to be here. And I'm like, who am I? Like, I'm nobody. Like, I'm still,
that's cool.
As far as I know, I'm still, no one's ever heard of me, and I'm still struggling to, do something that's really gonna, hit or take off.
Right.
I apparently missed the fact that I might be famous now, and so, I didn't get that memo. And so the fact, when people come up and they're like, you're just an inspiration to me, or what you do, makes me, challenges the way I think about stuff to, try and do better. And then you come out with the next thing and I'm like, oh my God, now I got to do, even better than that. And so I tell people, don't worry about me, just, do the best you can do. But yeah, so being able to, come into people's lives, with a piece of artwork. And that's one of the things that I have a live show on Facebook, I do once or twice a month, and even like my newsletters and all of that, where first, I'm super grateful that you guys are here to begin with, that you're even talking to me, because, you know, like I said, I still think I'm nobody. But
Right.
being able to do something that then affects other people to want to go out and, you know, do their own thing, you know, tell their own stories, share their own, you know, experience. And, you know, that is, as I said before, just one of the greatest gifts that I've ever received as an artist, as a creator, you know, as an influencer,
Right.
you know, being able to just motivate people to do that, you know. And, you know, even getting a little huggy, touchy feely here, when people, you know, we all kind of struggle with, you know, mental health and that kind of stuff at times, self-doubt, self-worth, you know, am I good enough? Am I doing it?
Yeah.
What I tell people and what I try to communicate is that I don't know who you are. I don't, you know your life or what your experiences have been. But what I can tell you unequivocally is that people need to hear your story. You know, whether it's a good story or a not good story, whether it's your first story or 10th story, people need that in the world. That is part of your value and what you are here to do. And so there's going to be a lot of people that are going to pick it up and be like, this is stupid. But there's going to be even more people that are going to be like, thank you. You inspire me. Thank you for doing that. So.
To be a motivational speaker, man.
Yo, start a cult. No, but that was,
start a cult.
That's right. Give me your women and your money.
Yeah.
No, yeah, that was great. That was awesome.
Yeah.
That was, I mean, I'm extremely motivated. I mean, I want to jump and start drawing again, but let's do it. Let's just do it. Let's start drawing.
Doesn't matter if you have 1 hour or all day or all night. You know, that's and part of how I ultimately transitioned. You know, especially in the early days when I was, you know, waiting tables or selling shoes or insurance or the other things. I'd be like, look, I'm a comic book artist, or I'm an artist. I'm an illustrator. I just, you know, I don't talk about that other stuff. I'm just an illustrator. That's what I do. Check out my artwork. This is what I've done. You know, you don't have to get into the details of the fact that no one knows who you are. We'll pay you to do anything. I'm doing this. And what starts to happen is, you know, especially like your friends, your family, at first, they're always just going to remember you as, you know, whatever your normal job is. That's what you do. This art thing is a hobby, or, you know, it's a phase.
Right.
But, and just, you know, that perseverance, you're going to cross a point where suddenly you're not just a hobbyist, or it's not just a thing or a phase that you're doing. He might be kind of serious about this. He's getting pretty good. Like, what's actually, you know, they're going to get a little curious about it. And because you don't give up, because you just keep telling people over and over and over and over again that you're a comic artist, you're an artist, you're a musician, you're whatever it is that you choose to be, that's what you are. You know, like, it's self-affirmation. You become the thing that you say you are. And as long as you're actually getting after it and doing it, you know, little by little, piece by piece, suddenly you have a comic book, or you have a song done, or you have, you know, whatever it is that you're making, and that is out there and it is done. And people are like, well, holy crap, he actually did it. You know, on one hand, people are waiting for you to fail, because then you're just sort of like them. They tried some stuff, they failed at it, they never did it, and they have their job and it's safe and secure, and they've got their family and whatever else, you know. So you're like them, and then you cross that threshold where you do the thing, and now you're not like them. Oh man, remember Joe? Remember that guy Joe? He always said he wanted to do comics and be a comic book artist and do art and all of that, and he did it. He made it. Oh man, like Sean always talked about it. All he ever did was eat, you know, weed gummy bears, but he got after it. He got after it, and like, he did it. Like, you know, he made it. He's out there, you know, and whether it's actually good or not is sort of irrelevant. It's just doing it.
Right.
You know? you'll have plenty of self-doubt along the way of like, oh man, this thing sucks. No one's gonna like it. No one's gonna read it. That doesn't matter. It's your story, and you need to get it out there into the world. And that's just a part of your story, and along this journey that we're taking together, and hopefully for many, many years to come.
The inspiration it continues, man. It's just like inspiration.
I'm trying to hang up the phone, but keep pulling me back in.
I love it.
So I guess we'll end it on where can we find you? Plug whatever you want to plug.
There you go.
Exploit yourself.
All right, here it comes.
Expose yourself.
So obviously you saw the website earlier on the video, jessewichmann.com. It's my website, web store, art gallery, tattoo gallery. You guys can send me a message. I run the website, so everything comes straight to me. I am also, there you go, jessewichmann.com. I am on Instagram and Facebook, jesse.wichmann. And actually, if you scroll just to the bottom of the page, you'll see all those social links. Through dozens of years of art. Yep, down there is the social button, so those make it easy to come and find me. I'm out there on Twitter and all the different places too, but typically Facebook and Instagram are where I'm, sort of mostly out there. You can sign up for my newsletter that's at the top of the page. Like I'll blast out once or twice a month, whatever I'm thinking about at the time. And new stuff that's happening and coming along. Yep, there's some of the tattoos. Oh God, I need to update that. It's been 1,000 years since I put anything in there.
I'm wondering why I didn't just come to the website and look up all the fucking...
Yeah, everything is out there.
Like, God, dropped the ball on that one.
Oh my
Hello,
God.
McFly.
No, I know. Jeez.
So yeah, I mean that's the main places. You can see the stuff behind me here. Fathom is up for pre-order. That was actually out on the there's nothing on the blog. Don't click on that.
Okay.
If you go back to the homepage, Fathom is up for pre-order. Princesses versus Zombies. I actually have to make a button for that because I just dropped it. But that will be my next exclusive coming out. And then just come and hang out with me on social media. Throw if you buy anything from me, I love seeing unboxing videos or, hanging stuff on the wall, or pictures that you took of stuff. I love seeing all of that kind of thing. And I'm easygoing. I'm laid back. If you have questions, throw them at me. I'll do my best to answer them in 10,000 words or less. And
that is, excuse me. I'm good. That's awesome.
Guaranteed to give you gas.
Heartburn.
Breaking hearts.
All years of heavy drinking whiskey and tore my shit up. So don't do it. Don't do it, kids. Live longer. Right. Sean, where can we find you, brother?
You can Google me. It'll be interesting. Yeah. Sean Ahrendt across the board. YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Yeah. And Joe, what about you?
All the social media sites. You're guaranteed, if you check out a lot of my social media, to probably get more uplifting content than you normally would see, especially today and most days. So I try to keep it that way because the drama sucks.
Did you tell somebody to fuck off? Is that what happened?
Did I?
No, I'm kidding.
I mean, I'm sure I had before. I'm just saying, usually I like to keep it a little bit more uplifting, uplift people. I post my art.
You can fuck off.
Yeah, and that too. You're like, come to my page. You're gonna get some good, wholesome material. And if you don't like it, fuck off.
There you go.
But yeah, I mean, all the social medias. You can check out the YouTube for everybody that's watching on Facebook right now. Check us out, both me and Sean on YouTube. That's where we stream our shows, YouTube and Facebook. Which again, I'd like to remind everybody that on November 6th, we are moving to YouTube only, and we're going to have our own, just one channel that we're doing everything off of the art and stuff channel. So check us out. Bring all your likes that you've given us to that channel.
And thank you for all that.
And thank you for all that. Yeah, definitely. Please do that. So let me hit a couple. Anybody that's joining us late, thank you so much for checking out the stream. It was a hell of a good,
thank you, Colin.
very fun show. Jesse, you've been extremely motivating. The art is amazing. Fun tattoo stories. We're gonna have to have you on again and
you're
do it
good
all over
people.
again. Good, yeah, definitely. Yep.
That's what's up.
Entertainment.
Thanks for having me on, guys. It's been an absolute pleasure. It was a fun time. I'm glad that we, were able to hang out and chat. We got all those good stories out there. Hopefully, I haven't scared too many people away from creating stuff. Hopefully I motivated a few folks to get after their goals and their dreams, make it a reality, get your story out there. And yeah, I would absolutely love to be back on, in a couple of months or next year, or whenever it all works out. And yeah.
Well, if you, after we end the stream, hang on for a quick second, and I'll talk to you about that before we actually sign off from each other. Russell, if you just look up Joe M. Sonntag and Sean Ahrendt, we both have YouTube channels. That's where we stream from YouTube. If you want to check that out, we really appreciate that. All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining us on this awesome Friday night. Have a great weekend. Be safe out there. Go Bears. Chicago Bears, that is. 3-0, baby. I'm just saying. I'm going to throw that out there and let everybody know we're coming for it this year. Nick Foles. And the Jets suck.
Fuck you. And adios.
All right, everybody. Let's see y'all later. Oh, hey,
good night.
Next week, we got John Malin on. I want to throw that out there before a little bit of advertisement there. So next week, check us out. Friday, 8:30, John Malin. And until then,